Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So I know a majority of my videos at this point actually talk about more about what is technology consulting and how to get into it, but I never really mentioned about what are the exit opportunities. If you think consulting is not for you or specifically technology consulting, what could you do? So there's a lot of things you can go about it, and I'm going to go into all the options that you can go for and how. So first, I just want to preface that, you can always go to like another discipline in consulting. You can always go into like management and strategy consulting. You may have to kind of pivot more into the technology part of it, like either in the technology industry or maybe go into technology strategy consulting. These are a lot easier to go into before you go into the general management or strategy consulting, but not entirely impossible if you want to make that complete jump. The other thing is also you can become an independent consultant. A lot of technology consultants actually do this so they can work their own hours and then they're actually working by themselves. They basically are contractors, but not necessarily, where like, let's say for example, a client is hiring Accenture for a project, but then maybe like the client also wants a few independent consultants to really work directly for particular tasks or projects within the project. So the general ways that a lot of people can go into is like either through the industry, tech, or entrepreneurship. So there's also industry. So a lot of people end up wearing, like for example, I'm a technology consultant. I don't actually specialize in any particular industry at this point, but I specialize in Workday financials. I could actually join the IT team for like a particular client that has Workday Live. The other thing could be like maybe they're trying to work with a cloud ERP system and they just want someone that has knowledge about. Maybe they just want someone that has experience with Workday. And sometimes you'll actually look for these particular roles in the client side. You'll see that they're actually looking for consultants sometimes, or ex-consultants. So this way you can actually frame yourself that, like for example, I'm doing Workday Financials, which is a cloud ERP system. If they're looking for someone that has experience with a cloud ERP system, not necessarily Workday, it still works. So I could actually be their architect when it comes to those systems. And the other thing about this is that some companies actually they do have like a whole transformation. Like maybe they went from SAP to Workday, or maybe they're using Salesforce, but then because of like all the people that they have worked with don't necessarily know much about the software, since sometimes they may want to even hire those consultants to actually work in-house, so that way like any issues that come up they can still help out. Almost every single project I've worked with have actually done something like this, where they hired someone specifically to help maintain or be like administrator for the software, because they don't have the expertise but the consultants do. So sometimes they try to either poach it in the client team that they've worked with, or some other place where they have like a consultant that's willing to do that. The other is the business functional team. So as I mentioned before, I was doing Workday Financials. So if I actually wanted to, I could join the finance team of any particular company. I have the knowledge for it. Again, it's not necessarily going to apply for every technology consultant because I do have the business knowledge for it. If I was a technical consultant and only I worked with was like integrations, maybe not, because you don't know enough to actually be in the functional side. So if you were in the functional side, you can go to the business side of the client. The other, as I mentioned, is like if you were to become an internal consultant. So in this case, you were on their payroll, probably you're gonna have a 1099, but you are working with the client as an employee, even though you're actually more of a consultant. So at the end of your contract, you could technically leave. That is one way you can go for. And I've actually gotten so many offers if I wanted to do this, but I really don't want to do this at this time. So then there's also working at a tech company, which is no surprise, and you probably thought about this actually. You can still work at a tech company, like let's say for Google, and then you want to be a solutions architect or product manager. You've already worked with clients, so in this case it will be customers, and you're trying to also help build an architecture of the system. So this is a good role to be in between the business and technology, because product manager and solutions architect are really similar to what technology consultants on the functional side do. So this is really good because you're really just doing it on the client side instead. The other way is like you're at actually the business function of a technology company. So let's say the business function of the tech company is, I want to go back into Workday Financials. So if I wanted to do finance in a technology company, I could also do that. Or maybe I want to work with financial systems, like the kind of bigger platform around it. Then you can also work with the software company of the implementation. So when it comes to Workday Financials, that would be Workday. I actually know a few people who have actually left implementations and then they went into like the software providers. So Salesforce consultants went to Salesforce, Workday consultants went to Workday. Because you've worked with the clients, you're like now the product lead, you kind of know about the software a lot better than a lot of people. You're really probably like a key all-star employee that they're expecting, because they don't have to teach you everything. They don't have to make you relearn everything. You just already know it from the practical standpoint. Now you're trying to actually build the product from the inside. And then there's also a lot of tech companies with clients and customers that maybe you actually could be a part of, like client success factors or business development or sales. Like there's so many different ways that you can also be a part of in terms of a tech company. So like let's say for example, I don't want to do Workday anymore, I don't want to do Accenture consult. Maybe this startup that is trying to sell B2B software to companies, that is something that I could technically do because I have knowledge of how software is like, kind of like what goes into a software implementation or even how it goes through the sales progress. So there's a lot of ways you can go about it. That's a little bit more of a stretch. Typically people in technology consulting that may have like the sales aspect, higher you go in the hierarchy, you will actually have more sales opportunities. So this is a really good way to also kind of leverage that and going into a tech company doing the same exact thing. Then the last one is entrepreneurship. And a lot of people actually go into entrepreneurship either after it because they either have like the mindset to go creative, they have the mindset to go problem solving and everything like that, working with all your resources, being resources. Literally it's definition of being an entrepreneur. The only difference now is that instead of working for a client, you're working for yourself. So all those things that you were using before, you're now doing it to yourself. A lot of people also go to consulting. They want to learn about different businesses and a lot of clients and all these kind of structures and industries and whatnot. Then they want to start their own startup. So this way, maybe they are familiar with cloud technologies now and then they want to open their own startup in cloud technology. So you could do that as well. You can also open your own consulting agency and firm. So I know a few people who have done this because they are now very experienced with what they're doing, like maybe 5 or 10 years in the technology consulting industry. So they've either now built a team that actually knows a lot more than just that, and then they can actually do their own implementations, or they have all these different types of people from that different experience and backgrounds, and they can actually do like kind of like a one-stop shop, all service technology consulting firm. Something that not a lot of people mention is that they also go into like venture capital as well sometimes, and this is a really good way to kind of be back in the technology field but in a different perspective. Not a lot of people I know have actually done this, but there's so many ways that you can go into when it comes to exit opportunities. It really is more about how you can utilize your transferable skills, because even if like I can be talking to one particular technology consultant, they may have completely different projects that we're on. So let's say for example, I have like a friend who was working on primarily pharmaceutical clients, doing almost everything, and then he actually ended up leaving to go into a pharmaceutical company. So it's really just more about like, think about your kind of background and transferable skills or even experiences that I can use, and that could be a really good way to kind of leverage into kind of leaving and exiting consulting. It's super fruitful to be in consulting, to have all these kind of doors open for you because of all the kind of skills and experience and all these kind of things that they kind of push onto you. What I like to say is that like maybe 1 year in consulting is kind of like 2 years in corporate, so you're kind of really pushing yourself. A lot of companies actually look for consultants too because you have a lot of top skills and experiences that a lot of people don't have. You're always on your feet, you're working with clients all the time, you're always flexible, learning on your own, being eager, working in a team, leading, all these kind of things. So these are kind of typical things that you may not normally have when it comes to working in a company. So with that said, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. If maybe I left out any things that you may have considered, or maybe you have exited consulting and you considered trying to do something else. Please leave a comment down below of like what other questions you may have, and please give me a like because that definitely helps me in the algorithm. It really also helps validate that I'm doing a good job and that I should keep doing these videos. Thank you, and please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.